You're listening to the Full Phoenix Rising podcast. A church as a positive disruption for good. Full Phoenix Rising. Sorry, it's been a couple of weeks. And part of that was because I was trying to figure out how to do this best so it was effective and useful. I kind of want it to be a sounding board for ideas that I have from Sunday. It's not quite Dead Elephants podcast. It's somewhere in between. And because it's a micro pod, I want it to be done in 10 minutes. So today we had a conference. Carey Nieuwhof came out to Australia and shared some ideas about the state of the church. And it was really good, I think, for me, because a lot of those things were reflected in where we were trying to push the church to. So I wanted to run through the ideas that he had. Okay, the first one is there's 5 shifts that are happening in the church. And that is that the foyer has moved from in church to online. So if you don't know this, most of you first-time visitors, like over 90%, make a decision on whether or not they're going to go to your church based on your website. So oftentimes our first interactions are digital ones before we actually have a physical attendance of a person to a Sunday service. People long for transcendence more than immanence. So the nature of church in recent seasons was, let's have a massive worship service and a really engaging talk. And the goal is to bring the presence of God so close in the room that someone has an encounter. The notion, though, has moved more towards a reflective style service. So people want to experience the transcendent nature of God, how big, how majestic, how amazing He is. I'm going to speak to that in a little bit. Third, people are looking for an alternative to culture rather than an echo of it. And passion beats polish. So as our church launched into 2024, we were looking at some of the natures of our church and some of our rhythms and thinking, what are ways we can respond to this? And so first thing we wanted to do was shift from monologue to dialogue. So communion at its worst is us telling you why Jesus' death matters. Worship at its worst is a bunch of really excellent musicians who are singing in a way that says, hey, just watch us sing to the Lord and maybe one day you can be as good as we are. Announcements is telling you what's happening. And sermons oftentimes are me in a long monologue about all the different ways this passage has spoken to me this week. And potentially there's going to be some ways that you can take stuff away. And so our goal was to move everything from monologue to dialogue. So dialogically, worship is better when we do it together. Communion is better when we together experience what that means, the significance of Jesus' death. Sunday sermons are better when we figure out ways that we can engage our community in dialogue about Jesus. And so there was this big shift for us from monologue to dialogue. The second thing we wanted to do was create a space where thoughtfulness matters. So I don't need you to be professional in any of the fields. What I want you to do is be thoughtful. So what are the ways that you have thought about this throughout the week? Because I think thoughtfulness breeds authenticity about what you're trying to share. That was the next big thing. Our third thing was moving away from a notion of Bible study to spiritual formation. So our big goal for the year is spiritual formation retreats. What are ways that we can practically get away to be with God? So let's not learn more, but let's take our learnings and make sure that there's a heart transformation that's going on in there. And final thing is community is everything, which is that we want us to passionately care for the people in our community, which means that as we seek to be with Jesus, be like Jesus, and do the things that Jesus does, we want our people to be on that same journey with us. So we're administering abundant grace, love, compassion in a way that says we don't care who you are or how you come. We are all transformed by the love of Jesus, and that may be a slow, methodical journey, and we're willing to take that walk together, which might mean that our community is a bit messy. So from my perspective, they're the ways that we were shifting in our church. it's the same thing that Carey Nieuwhof is picking up on. Move one of the church. We should be more engaged in elevating community and connection over content. Don't be a content heavy service, be a community heavy service. Our churches should have elements of both immanence and transcendence, because that's the true nature of God. And we don't want to overemphasize one in face of the other. But what we were trying to do as our church is create space. How do we slow things down so that we can sit alternative to culture, to use his language, and create space in our service so that we might enter into the presence of God, which means things need to be slower. They need to be quieter than they have been in the past, which he speaks to, creating space and moments in your service, creating a healthy, non-toxic leadership culture. One of the things we're trying to do as well is create that sense of accountability, that we can speak wisdom into each other's lives. I just felt that that was a really healthy framework for us personally as we go into 2024, but hearing it from Carey Nieuwhof that he's seen that shift within the church was just a real kind of affirmation for us. So there's 5 thoughts for today. I hope they're helpful. We'll see you again next week.